Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the show. Listen, I'm glad to have you guys here on this Wednesday. I'm going to tell you guys something. A warning. We're heading into something really big, something really dangerous. Take a look at these pictures. Uh, Back in the 1930s, during the Great Depression, they had something called the Dust Bowl. And it was a weather phenomenon, and it's repeating. History is repeating itself. We're heading into another I'm going to call it the greatest depression ever. Because the magnitude of power, if you study history about the Great Depression, the magnitude of power of the Great Depression, if it was say a 10, this is like a 12. Because of the loss of GDP and everything else, and the overexposure debt and everything else. All the symptoms of the Great Depression are there. Except the money is different this time. This time, the Great Depression was a deflationary depression. This is going to be a hyperinflationary depression. A little bit of a difference there in what happens with the money. During the Great Depression, the money became worth more and more. People would work for 50 cents all day long, if they could get a job. Many people went without food. People starved during the Great Depression. It was a terrible time in American history. We're heading into a greater depression. It's going to be stronger, have more magnitude, and it's probably going to last a bit longer. The real bad part of it, it's going to last a bit longer. There's going to be food shortages and difficulty obtaining food because food prices are going to just absolutely go beyond measure. How much it's going to cost, termed in dollars, Wages are not going to keep up. We're heading into all of this very soon. We're going to have a little period called it's a period leading into the hyperinflationary period. It's probably going to last about a year before we start to head into the actual hyperinflation of this thing. And during that period, that lead-in period, the economy is actually going to pick up a little bit. History's repeating. The Dust Bowl, everything. I watched an episode of The Waltons. You remember the movie, The Waltons, the series they had on TV with John Boy and all that? You remember they used to go to bed in the evening and they used to say, "Good night, John Boy. Good night, Mary Ellen. Good night, Susie," or who, or, all the way through the night, Grandpa, and all that. Remember that show? That show's setting was in the Great Depression era. I remember one show in particular where they were all working together. They were opening up their piggy bank, looking for money, any money that they could find. And they were doing jobs, whatever they could find. The old fella they were making lumber in the small lumber mill and selling it. Whatever they could do to get money. They're gathering all that money together so that they could try to pay their next year's property tax. Otherwise, they're going to get kicked off of their property. And it was a really hard effort for them. All the family were working to try to make money. They were just doing the kids even were doing little odd jobs or whatever they could. And they were pooling that money together to pay off their property taxes. Well, it's coming, guys. Certain things in the market right now are starting to hyperinflate. You have the stock markets and these, the Russell and the NASDAQ and the Dow Jones and all of these markets are starting to hyperinflate. They're going first. Bitcoin is starting to hyperinflate. Now, some things are not hyperinflating. Now, the dollar, when it hyperinflates, it goes down in value. But it's not. It's being manipulated to the upside. Gold and silver should go up in value when they hyperinflate. And they should be hyperinflating right now with what's happening. But they're being held down by using paper short contracts. They're propping the dollar up the same way. And they're keeping certain things from hyperinflating. They're holding them back. But they're not going to be able to hold them back forever. Gold and silver is going to take off to the upside at a certain point. It's going to break free. Because we're heading into a hyperinflation. The dollar is going to go down in value like a stone. It's going to be like a stone sinking in the water when it goes. And all of this is coming in our future. And what's going to happen is why I equated it to that movie, The Waltons, is your property taxes are going to hyperinflate. So even if you own your own property outright, you're going to be just like the Waltons. The property tax, I don't know what your property tax is, but let's say it's $2,500. It'll be $2,500 this year. Now you got to understand that everything out there right now, the government, they're scouring for money just like the Waltons were. They're looking for money everywhere they can in taxes. They're going to up anybody that's working out there. They're going to up your taxes higher and higher and higher. Property tax is going to be one of these taxes. State, local, and county authorities are going to go after taxes like mad to try to cover all their unfunded liabilities that they have, like pension funds and everything else. They're going to scour for taxes. And so what you're going to see is you're going to see them double your property tax. Then they'll double it again. Well, that's 4 times. Then they'll double it again. That's 8 times. And this is what they're going to do. And, so if you're paying like $2,500 in property tax, soon it'll be $5,000. And then the following year it'll be $10,000. And you're going to get sticker shock because your wage ain't going to keep up. And so even if you own your own property, they're going to be pushing you out because all your food prices are going to be going up. Everything across the board is going to be going up in price so bad. Your insurance for your car, everything. The taxes, they're going to tax you absolutely to death if you're making any money. Now, on the other side of this, their big plan, is to take all that tax money and give it to all the people who haven't got. The whole system has gone haywire. It's going haywire right now into this hyperinflationary depression. And it might be very difficult for you to keep, even if you own your own house, to stay in your own house might be very difficult. But then there's another problem when all this hits too. At a certain point when it gets really bad, like a couple years from now, I don't know, let's just say 3 years from now, when it gets really bad and you're in the final stages of the hyperinflation and you're seeing values on everything increase daily, like let's just each day. So you go in to buy a loaf of bread one day. And quite seriously, I'm going to use the analogy of a wheelbarrow full of money to buy a loaf of bread. This is where we're going with this, ultimately. And this is what happened in Germany. They went through this. And I mean, it sounds ridiculous for me to say a wheelbarrow full of money to buy a loaf of bread. But the next day, it's going to take 2 wheelbarrows full of money to buy the same loaf of bread. So, in a hyperinflation, everything that's an asset you can hold in your hand, if you've got an old saw blade, you can hold it in your hand. It's doubling in value every day, just like gold and silver. Gold and silver are the epitome of this. They'll be going up in value so much. And the same thing with, but tangible things that exist in the real world. And what's going to make this exceptionally bad is the fact that all the money's digital. It doesn't nearly exist. This is going to make it much more exceptionally bad. And the fact that now most people use money that's transmitted across the internet and stuff. This is going to make it exceptionally bad. The system's cracking up. Basically what it's coming down to. But it's going to crack up in one of 2 ways. It's going to either deflate or inflate. And so I'm talking about the inflation because this is the most likely scenario. I'm going to say there's a 99.9% chance it's going to inflate and like a little 0.0001% chance that it's going to deflate. And why I'm giving it such high odds for inflation is because within the political world, you tell me what politician's going to stand up there and say, well, let's just quit. Let's just let the bond rates go where they are. Let's let the stock market go where it's going to go. No, of course, they're going to just keep pumping the money out there so that they look good. They're not going to take responsibility and do the right thing and let the system purge itself. See, all of this really goes back to 2008. They needed to let the system collapse and purge itself. Instead, what did they do? They inflated it. But I'm going to tell you a little secret about that. Way back in 2008, when the system was only just wasn't leveraged like it is now, and times were good, if they had let the system melt down in 2008, it would have been an unparalleled crisis. Now they've over leveraged it like, guys, it's unreal how much they've over leveraged it from 2008 till now. And so now if they let the system deflate, it would be total wipeout. Total wipeout. The system would just lock up and freeze. They can't do it. And this is why I'm giving them such a small percentage chance of it actually happening that way. So what's the alternative to that? If you don't let it deflate, what's the alternative? You got to keep inflating it, and you got to keep everything inflated. And that's what they're going to do. But we only got about a year or a year and a half left until doing that causes hyperinflation. And so I'm going to tell you guys, it's all over basically. We're heading toward the hyperinflation. And there's nothing going to turn us around. We're like a car right now, headed 90 miles an hour and the bridge is out. Guys, and we're heading toward the hyperinflation. And it's going to try to rob you of everything. Because prices are going to go up so exceedingly fast on everything you have to buy or purchase that people just aren't going to be able to afford anything. It's going to be a big job just to stay in your home. If you've got a vehicle, see, the same thing happened during the Great Depression. This the grapes of wrath. They were riding these cars that they had because they lost their home. They lost their home. They couldn't pay. And it squeezes you. The hyperinflation will squeeze you. And it'll keep squeezing you, and you keep downsizing. You keep trying to not spend, be tight with your money and watch every penny you pay, but still, it keeps squeezing at you. Because things keep going up so fast, and your amount of money you got coming in ain't keeping up. I mean, quite seriously, guys, in Germany, during the hyperinflation, a guy, I heard this story from, where did I hear it? On the internet, but it's probably based in truth. The prices go up so fast that the guy bought a bottle of wine, expensive French wine or whatever, in the nighttime, and he drank it. And the next morning, the empty bottle was worth as much as he paid for the wine the night before. Like, prices can increase, like, they can go up, like, each day, like, more than double price each day. Like, and you just can't keep up. So you get all these bills coming in. Bills and bills and bills and bills. And you just can't pay them. You got to buy food. You're forced to buy food. And the food goes up so high, so expensive, so fast. It takes all your money. And then how are you going to pay your property tax? How are you going to pay your car insurance? How are you going to pay your telephone? How are you going to pay your lights and everything else? When it comes down to making a decision whether you're going to eat. Well, if you got silver and gold, you might be able to have a chance. But this is a serious situation, and hyperinflation is not going to be pretty. It's not going to be fun. And it could actually cause some sort of a revolution or possibly certain areas will experience what Texas just experienced with the power grid going down and everything else, I'm half expecting certain areas of the country, depending on where you are, you might be in an area. So one county, your county might go out. Pop, lights go out. That's it. Right? Might not come back on for weeks or months. Then what happens? Well, things start to get dangerous then. Because the people that are there are doing without, when they get to a certain point, they like start to form into, I don't know, groups or whatever. Let's just say groups. And, there's something called home invasions, you know, and things like that start to happen. And they happen during the Great Depression era, you know, and it could actually get to a point like if you're in one of these counties where your county's out, the county right next to you is still on. Grid's still up and everything. And just across the county line. But your county's out. And there's law and order in the county next to you. But your county, the law and order is just like disintegrated. I mean, they got no power, they got no water and everything else, And so it could be county by county sort of thing, depending on where you're at and what power company. Maybe a power company just went bankrupt and they sent all their employees home and the power went out and nobody there to fix it. This kind of thing could go on during the hyperinflation. This is what happened in Venezuela. This is a very serious situation, and you got to be ready for almost anything. And it's a difficult thing to say, but you got to be ready to actually maybe even get out of a certain area if the whole area just turns sour. And maybe there's a good area just a couple 100 miles away, sort of a thing. And we just don't know how this is going to play out, because areas we think are good might turn bad. I mean, take a look at the people in Texas. They didn't see this coming. All of a sudden, bam, they're in the dark. And they're freezing. And their house is cold. They got electric heat, but they got maybe a heat pump in their house. They can't turn it on. No backup power. They never prepared for an emergency like this. They don't even have hardly any coats. I mean, and here it is like 25 degrees and windy and stuff and no power, and they go out and they have to sit in their car to try to stay warm, and stuff like that. It's just, it can come out of nowhere during a situation when the structure of society starts to break down because we're going the money. There's a problem with the money. And that problem with the money already exists, and math tells me that what I'm telling you right now, the warnings I'm giving you guys, is absolutely has to happen because of math. There's no way out of this. The situation that the Fed finds itself in is almost like a trap right now. And there's no way out. Well, there's two things that has to happen. Either it's going to deflate or it's going to inflate. And the inflation and the things I'm telling you about right now look bad. You say, oh, that sounds terrible what Glenn's talking about. That's good compared to what the deflation would do. Because, okay, I've just been telling you that maybe your county might go down, the power might go out, the grid might go down and stuff, but the county might see you might be up and running. This is the way it is in the hyperinflation. But you know what it's like in a deflation? Everything stops. Every county. There is no place to go because it's all out. The whole grid's down and it's not coming back on. Maybe not ever. That's what a deflation would do. Now with the hyperinflation, you might get partial system shutdowns because, see, the money's still flowing. It's just that it's corrupted and it's becoming worthless, but it's still flowing. And money is what keeps things running. See, in a deflation, the money just all evaporates. It all disappears. Everything goes bankrupt. The whole system. That's the deflation. And that's what they're keeping us from. By inflating. But by inflating, they're going to push us into the hyperinflation. And they can't stop. This is a problem with our money. Worldwide. Worldwide, we're all using corrupted money. It's not backed by anything. It's a confidence game worldwide, and the confidence is going to be lost very soon. We're heading toward that daily. People are starting to wake up and say, hey, this money's worthless. What in the hell are we doing? What is money anyway? Thank you guys for listening. I know this was kind of a rough show to listen to, but this is where we're going. Give me a thumbs up and hit that notification icon, and we'll catch you guys in the next show. Bye-bye.